of the Uncensored team noticed that one of the first eager superfans to comment on my interview with Nick Fuentes was Stephen Crowder, the host of Louder with Crowder, who wrote on our YouTube channel, How to Not Conduct an Interview 101. And Mr. Crowder joins me now. Welcome to you, Mr. Crowder.
Thank you for having me, sir. Merry Christmas. Or do you guys say Happy Christmas? I've heard it both ways.
We do both. I'd be very happy to wish you a Happy Christmas and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Despite you impugning my qualities as an interviewer. You did expand on this. You said Piers Morgan is a liberal at heart, which I think is probably right. So he spent the whole interview trying to gotcha his way through identity politics on a guy who already rejects the premise. I did think that was an interesting commentary, actually. I would start by saying I wasn't trying to gotcha him because I'd already made it clear I was going to put to him, I'd already said this publicly, I was going to put to him all the more contentious things that he has said, which have gained notoriety, and challenge him properly about them, which I think I did. I don't categorize that as a gotcha. He got very exercised about the story involving his father. And I said on an earlier panel we did that actually, if I had my time again, I wouldn't have named his father, although it's easily discoverable on the internet, but I wouldn't have done that. I would still have told the anecdote because as I tried to explain to Nick Fuentes, the story was put in the public domain by Nick Fuentes about his father in a way in which you could only construe from it that his father made decisions when Nick Fuentes was young, which appeared to be racist decisions. And I was curious whether he felt he was a product of that environment. Now, he went nuts about that, and he's perfectly entitled to. And he's come after me and my family. If he's perfectly entitled to do all that, I don't care. But I was curious why you felt that I was playing gotcha with him and not just actually, I think, doing my job as a journalist and just challenging him about the more contentious things that he said.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't think you challenged him on the most contentious things. And by the way, it's not an impugnment of your character. It's a different interviewing style, right? I think that trying to shame someone like Nick Fuentes for being racist, for being a misogynist, like that's a layup for him. He's already been accused of that, and I don't think it's very fruitful. I mean, I don't want to conflate gotcha with challenging. So I would say, by the way, yeah, if he's going after your family, Nick Fuentes, if you're watching, strongly condemn that from your audience if anything is happening out of line. But I also would say, when the guy makes a good point and says, hey, you know what, my dad's not here to defend himself. Could we move on from that? Don't do it 6 more times. But I counted 6 times, and you're not able to get to where you actually have disagreements. See, when I sat down with Nick, and yeah, I played his clips back. People could argue that it was tedious, but I would play a 1.5-minute clip, a 2-minute clip, because I wanted to show it in context. And I was able to actually lay out, we were actually able to contrast our policy, our prescription differences, where people know. And so I think if you go after, father being racist, I don't even know that you would construe his father's being racist because he doesn't like Applebee's. No one likes Applebee's. No one likes Applebee's.
Hang on. That's not what he said. He literally told the story that his father didn't like that particular restaurant chain or others because they were known for black fare.
Sure.
Well, that's racist.
Black fare? What if people don't like black fare as far as food? What if people don't want to be somewhere where they're more likely to end up in a World Star hip hop video? This is where we get to the issue of you and him discussing per capita. Right? Let me ask you this. Like you're a Catholic. We were talking about this. You said you'd be happy to talk about it. What do you think is going to be fruitful in attacking a celibate Catholic for not getting laid?
I didn't attack him.
You're driving people into his arms.
I didn't attack him.
He said he needs to get laid.
I think he does.
That's a heresy.
I think he does. I think he's an incel.
So you advocate heresy.
I think I perfectly understand. If you're a devout Catholic, which I'm not, if you're a devout, I was brought up a Catholic and I was given spiritual guidance by Catholic nuns, and a lot of my family are very devout Catholics. I'm not particularly, but I still adhere to, broadly adhere to Catholicism, albeit there are parts of the teachings I don't agree with. So that's my position on it. But I can understand if he'd said to me, the reason I've never had sex...
Then why bring it up, Piers? Why is it relevant whether he's been laid or not? Because I said in my interview specifically, just so you know, I'll answer for everything I say. When I interviewed him, I said, I hate it when people use something that should be seen as a virtue as an attack. Out of all the views, if you view them as reprehensible, and I, by the way, strongly disagree with a lot of Nick's views, the least relevant is whether he's celibate as a devout Catholic. That's like a good thing. And so you actually give him the moral high ground. He says, hey,
had he said to me,
out of it.
Yeah, but hang on, you're putting up a better defense, if I may suggest, than he did. Because had he said to me, I'm a devout Catholic, and the reason I haven't had sex is because the Catholic Church forbids that and says you should be married before you have sex. Perfectly reasonable answer. That's not what he said. He never said that at all.
So you didn't do your research, because he said that literally dozens of times.
He may have said it elsewhere. He didn't say it to me. I only asked him about that stuff because there is a view that he is what they call an incel, and that he whips up that kind of mentality, and that's why he's such a misogynist about women and so on. It's an interesting thing to ask him. He seemed to me quite happy to answer it all. He was quite emphatic in his answers. Fine. I didn't see that as an attack. I was joking about getting laid because it seems to me he's a very angry guy.
Can I jump in for a second here?
Yeah.
Because this is where I think this is important, right? His audience will. People out there, by the way, some who are voluntarily celibate because they're devout Christians, but also if you look at the dating pool out there, I don't think it's misogyny to say, I wouldn't date one of those young women if they were growing on my ass. And they're actually out there living in a world that's been created. They will identify you as someone who's helped create that, right? Someone who says, I don't care if the UK no longer looks white. I don't care if we lose our cultural identity. Hey, it's great, women's rights. And they're looking at their prospects. And when you say, you're celibate or whatever it is, you haven't gotten laid, you're an incel. Guess what? You give him the moral high ground. When you say, hey, what about your dad? And he asks you, and I will say, he asked pretty respectfully, don't do that. You go on 6 more times. What did you ask about Stalin?
Because I thought what he was doing.
You said little twerp.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
You said little twerp.
Stephen, I hear you. I hear you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, honestly, I'm not, because I've got a lot of respect for you. I think that
Well, thank you.
I think what he tried to do, I think he was taken aback when I revealed that anecdote about his father. And I think he didn't want to address what he actually said on air with that anecdote, because it's pretty damning when you hear it. And I think he decided very quickly, because he's a smart, quick operator, to turn it into me attacking him about his dad who wasn't there and how disgusting and blah, blah. And that's fine. But I kept trying to bring him back. I kept saying, look, it's not an attack on your father.
To his dad.
Well, I wasn't attacking his dad. I was saying, if you tell a story which looks to the world when they hear it, that you're saying your father was racist, can that have an influence on you as you grow up? That was the question I was making. I didn't want him getting off the hook of answering that question about his environment, having heard him in his own words put that story out there.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. In trying to keep him 6 times, and that's what I counted, on the hook for his dad maybe being a racist. Look, if your dad's in the Klan, it couldn't be relevant. It has nothing to do with the price of tea in China, right? What hook
Well,
would
it is
matter
if you openly admit to being a racist,
Hold on,
isn't
asking him about Stalin. And I say this because the last time I was on your show, remember we were talking about Tucker Carlson?
Yeah.
And by the way, I would hope that you would be just as hard on Candace and people like Tucker for some of the things that they've said.
Sure.
I think it's fair to be even-handed across the board.
Yeah, I agree.
Stalin, I said I would like to ask him about that, right? Is he a fan? Is he actually an admirer? Or does he just mean to say he's fascinated? What did you ask? You asked him about his dad 6 times. You attacked him as and I don't mean attack him. You present him, but racist, misogynist, right? Stuff that he already knows. That's the playbook. You'll drive your fans into his own arms. What was your question on Stalin?
Well, I asked him.
There wasn't one.
Well, there was actually.
There wasn't one.
No, you're missing.
there wasn't.
No, there was. You just didn't hear it. So I actually brought on a British journalist called Danny Finkelstein, who spent 90 seconds in a video talking about what Stalin and Hitler had done to his family. I did it in the context of him saying Hitler's cool, but Stalin was addressed in that, and he was totally dismissive of a Jewish man talking about his family being annihilated by Stalin and Hitler.
Do you hear yourself? Do you think that's going to be effective or fruitful?
Well, it wasn't.
On a guy named Finkelstein. No, it wasn't. You didn't ask him. Let me read you what I asked him about Stalin. Okay, because I think a lot of people, you responded saying it was softball. Did you watch the whole interview that I conducted with Nick?
Well, before you read what you're about to read, let me play a little mashup of you interviewing Nick Fuentes, and you can respond to this. Hang on.
Okay, but did you watch the whole interview?
Yeah,
Nick Fuentes, do you hate all Jews, sir?
No, I don't.
Okay. Do you consider yourself an anti-Semite, a noted anti-Semite?
No.
Okay. Clears that up. Do you believe that white people are superior to all other races on the planet?
No.
Okay. Do you want to eradicate all non-whites from the United States?
No.
Okay. Well, Barry Weiss will be very happy to hear that. No doubt she's watching. And then because this happens a lot, right? Tucker did this with you. Fed. Nick Fuentes, are you in fact a Fed?
No.
Okay.
I got to say, mate, that's one of the most forensic examinations of interviewing masterclass I think I've ever seen. I mean, the follow-ups were magnificent.
Nick.
Magnificent.
Pierce, did you watch the whole interview?
No.
No, you didn't. Okay, so one of us came here quite a bit more prepared, which seems to be your approach with Nick. So let me read you my exact question on Stalin. Those were layups specifically because, again, I think you and I both agree, right? We want to have reasonable discussions. You don't want to radicalize people.
I agree.
Get rid of the bull crap on the outset so that we could actually get to real differences. And I think here's something that I really pursue when I interview someone: truth and understanding. I asked him about Stalin. Let me read you the exact question later on. It would help if you watched the whole interview. I said, my question to you would be, I know that you've said we want a Catholic theocracy or a Christian theocracy. I've heard the word dictatorship. Correct me if I'm wrong. I would ask you, since the end point seems similar to where Stalin would want us to reach, swap atheism for Catholicism, would you be able to name, or is there any one thing that you think America concretely should copy about Stalin's rule or revolutionary methods to get there? And guess what? We were able to actually answer. We were able to actually discuss it. How many retractions on your show? 0. Quite a few on mine. How many times did we actually get into discussions regarding where we disagree? And let me tell you where I disagree with him. I'm to the right of him on some issues. I'm definitely to the right of him economically. He's a pretty big sort of centralized economy guy, but we did it in good faith. And I presented him with his own questions. We got that out of the way. If you don't watch the whole interview, yeah, you can take 15 seconds. Did you get to any, that was my question. And yours was, well, you never asked about Stalin. He said, do you still think Hitler is fucking cool?
Yeah.
How'd that work out for you? What'd you learn?
That he does.
And that's new? That he thinks they have nice outfits? They're Hugo Boss.
No, but okay, he didn't say that as his reason.
Did you learn about Stalin, Pierce? Did you learn about why young men
this
right
about
now are disaffected, disenfranchised?
As I said to you, I played a clip from a guy who literally lost family members, close family members, to Stalin and to Hitler.
Sure.
And Nick Fuentes' response was to mock him and then to unleash his groypers on this guy who've been now mercilessly abusing and mocking him about the loss of his family members to Stalin and Hitler for the last 48 hours. Now, you might think that's acceptable, or that somehow I didn't push that hard enough.
This is why legacy media is dying. You can't compete. Look, guys like Nick, guys like Andrew Wilson on your show, they've come up. I mean that you were at CNN, HLN for a very long time, and you're still following the same format. And so there, accusing someone young of being racist is a win. But with people who've grown up being accused of racism, of misogyny their whole life, they don't give a shit. And so you should get to the point where you can actually understand. Here's the one thing I would say that would help. Listen. You weren't listening to the guy, so you're not even able to lay out where you disagree and your own audience.
Well, I don't think you heard that. I don't think you could have heard the whole interview either. Then I mean, I'm going to go and listen to yours
every
in full.
last second, pillar to post.
Okay, but for 2 hours I talked to the guy. I came with an open mind. I wanted to know whether it was performative, whether he did these things, whether he said things as a joke, whether if he did and it blew up, he regretted any of them, or whether he really means this stuff. And I learned a lot more about Nick Fuentes in the 2 hours than I knew before. You probably knew it all already because you've interviewed him before. I haven't. It's the first time I've ever met him.
I've never interviewed him before. This was my first time I've ever spoken with him or interacted with him whatsoever. I did do my research, and I already knew what his stance was on Stalin. I already knew how he clarified it. I already knew his stance on racism. And here's what I would say, if I'm being as accurate as I can be, right, for the general populace. I think most people, if they listen to Nick Fuentes, his views on race and crime, they'd say, okay, someone like that has a case. Certainly any men under the age of 25. I think a lot of people would broad strokes categorize it as anti-Semitic. We were able to get into that. I was able to communicate that I thought Islamic immigration is a greater threat than global Jewry. And guess what? He disagreed, but we understood each other. You don't de-radicalize people by marginalizing everyone who actually makes good points, by spending 6 follow-up questions on a racist
by
accusing them of not getting laid and calling them twerps.
Stephen, here's what I'll concede. Like I did with the initial reaction that you did. I will concede I didn't get him. I mean, other than him saying, I believe now, actually, in a satirical way. In other words, I don't think he really meant it. But when he said he did think at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust, he did it in a way that others, like Glenn Greenwald, have told me he didn't mean it. Whatever, it's up to him. It's down to him. I don't think I don't think I got anywhere with Nick Fuentes. I don't think I got anywhere to him changing his mind about anything. I certainly didn't get anywhere in stopping him unleashing his groyper hounds on me or my family, whatever. I don't care. I've had far worse, and it's fine. If you're in the media jungle long enough, you get these pile-ons occasionally, and it's just better just to ride them out with a smile on your face. It's whatever. But I didn't get anywhere with it. So in a way, I am listening to you because I'm curious how you do get anywhere with somebody like that when his whole shtick is really just on doubling, trebling, quadrupling down, and he says things which I genuinely do find really offensive. When he talks about women in the way that he does, it is really offensive.
Well, okay, let me answer. Here's how you get somewhere, by not playing gotcha. So, for example, when you start off with, if you've done the research, you know it's facetious. Same thing that Jillian Michaels did. Do you think all women need to be raped? No, he was citing, by the way, study after study that you can replicate that 62% of women
Sure, he said
have
that to
some
me.
form of
He
a
said
rape
that to me.
fantasy. Yes, so sexually dominant. But when you start off with that, guess what? Young people go, okay, all right, same old, same old. You could have asked him, hey, what are your views on women?
I started off with this thing that all women are annoying and they all get old and fat and ugly.
What part of that do you disagree with?
All of it.
You don't think that women get fatter and more unattractive? Men do too, by the way.
I think men
You and I are
do.
both getting fatter and uglier. And I think that a lot of women, particularly if you go on TikTok and you see generationally, I think they're annoying. And I think that is a symptom of a serious problem, which is deeply rooted feminism, which, by the way, is the same source problem for LGBTQAI and the reason that you have biological men winning Olympic medals, right? You see that as a problem. You need to get to where you diverge or what the root of the problem is. And here's the thing, you're never going to get there if you just discount young people who are facing different problems. And I understand, I don't think they're right on all of it, but I understand it because I was listening. I think you could have listened to him better. If your goal is the pursuit of truth, and actually, and I would imagine your goal, if you think his views are abhorrent, by the way, and I think some of them are. So if your goal is to peel some of those people off, give him the floor to explain context so that you can contrast it. But it ended up getting back to gotcha.
Okay, but final question. Which of his views do you find abhorrent then?
Well, when he talks about, for example, I would say wrong. I would say wrong, the idea of global Jewry, and I told him that. The idea that massive third world immigration, particularly from Islamic countries, that largely rests at the feet of the Jews. I think it rests at the feet of these Islamic nations, of these third world nations that I would call crap holes, and that's considered a more offensive view. I think it's a problem, for example, when you ask him if he's a racist, he's going to answer yes. He's going to answer yes, but he actually answered, by the way, everyone's racist. And then he actually offered a qualifier, and through that, you're racist because you live in a largely white area. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that. You can't just ignore the points and go back to a soundbite. That's how a guy like Nick Fuentes, that's how he thrives. And by the way, people in the comment section, your own comment section, I get that some of them are trolling. Go easy, guys, on Pierce. It's Christmas. I think you were trying to do a good job. What I'm telling you, telling you, Pierce, is that it's not the way to approach a different generation of people who come up in a blood sport debate like they did on Twitch. It's going to actually give them a win.
Yeah, I think I buy into the argument they couldn't give a shit, actually. And that's one of the more depressing aspects of it.
Easier to dismiss them.
But if I'm worried about their comments, I would turn the comments off, and they're wide open. So bring your worst, you little groypers. Stephen Crowder, Merry Christmas to you. Always good to have you on. And I enjoy our conversations about these things. I think I get stuff out of them. I hope you do too. We always have an interesting chat, so thank you.
I do. Happy Christmas. I appreciate you taking the time.
All the best.